So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being here. If you don't know it already, the letters and the numbers that are in the top right corner of my very first slide indicate a shortened URL or web link, bit.ly/edpuzzle2021 or 2021. Sherry usually scoops that up and puts that in the chat space. My entire slide deck is available to you via that shortened URL. And so you can go back and look at those as you need to after today's presentation. I do apologize. The presentation will move very quickly. I have a lot of slides and a lot of content to cover. But one good thing to remember is that this presentation is recorded. So a few slides from now, I will remind you what that web link is so you can find that recording. I usually suggest to give Sherry a few business days to get that up on the website. So I would say Tuesday at the latest. You're definitely going to find it on that link, and I'll share that with you in just a second. So again, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Melissa Culver. So here's the one time during the presentation that you see my face if you don't know who I am. My email address is available right there. My website is available right there. And then my Twitter handle is also available right there. You don't need to pull out your cell phone and take pictures of these slides, but if there's ever something and you're like, oh, I don't want to lose that specific slide, you're more than welcome to take a picture of it. But again, that little web link is available for you, and you can access the entire slide deck. So here, I wouldn't say that these are my credentials, but here are some details about my experience and what I bring to education. I am currently an instructional technology coach, and I serve in the Clovis North area. I serve all 5 feeder schools that feed into the elementary schools that feed into Clovis North. A few characteristics about me and how geeky I am related to technology. If you ever want to learn about 3D printing, or if you ever want to learn about grant writing or programmable robots, those are options as well. I am on the calendar to present some more training in the future, so keep your eye out for some of those emails that Sherry will email out if you're curious about attending any of those future presentations that I'm going to host. In order to connect with me, you're more than welcome to utilize my website, melissaculver.com, and my YouTube channel and my Twitter handle I mentioned earlier. I am on Twitter and I do have a YouTube channel, so those resources are available to you at any time as well. When you access the presentation, these are actually hyperlinked, and you can click directly on those in order to find those easily. Just a moment ago, I indicated that this presentation is being recorded. So in order to find the recorded version of this presentation, you would head to the website that was designed by Curriculum Instruction and Accountability. And Debbie Parra usually sends that out every Friday. The web link is available on the bottom of the screen. You can see it here. Please be careful, because anything that's a capital letter inside that web link must be a capital letter when you're typing in that URL or web address. From the drop-down menu, you can find technology, and then inside that menu, they're usually alphabetical. Ed Puzzle will appear there once Sherry has had an opportunity to put it there. So that is where you will find that future link in order to find this resource. Here is our outline for today's session. I typically don't read all of my slides out loud, so I'll let you pause and then read the outline, and then I'll jump to the next slide. All right, so the first item on the outline is the flipped classroom, and this is a pedagogical model or a way of instructing students. We're typically used to students coming to school and receiving instruction in the school environment, and then we anticipate that they're going to go home and then they're going to use that space in order to practice the things that they've had a chance to learn at school. And the flipped classroom model is just that. It's flipping those environments so that the home becomes the learning space and the school becomes the practice space. Now, I'm not saying that you should do a complete overhaul to your educational model and that moving forward, everything has to fall under this flipped classroom model. But in some educational environments where children do not have access to support at home, the teaching can function successfully inside video-rich instruction. And then when the child returns to school, they now have a support system, you, the teacher, that can help them during the practice phase. So that's exactly what Ed Puzzle operates under. It provides students an opportunity to learn at home so that you can provide them with the support that they need inside of the classroom. So the traditional learning model, again, the instruction happens in the classroom, but then when the child goes home and they're like, oh, I don't remember how to do this. Oh, this is frustrating. Oh, I'm disappointed. Oh, I can't find anybody to help me. The flipped classroom model is designed in such a way where the teacher provides the support inside of the classroom when the child has had an opportunity to gain access to that instruction inside of the context of the home. So that's what I mentioned. That's what I mean when I say the flipped classroom model. And I'm not going to go into a long monologue about the flipped classroom model. That's really just it, just those few slides. As a learner, you might be curious, where does the teaching content come from? You might be curious, how do you as the educator know that the students have watched that material? And then how is that content graded? And I'm going to answer all of those questions in the context of this lesson. So I'm going to start off with the student experience. Oftentimes when I'm presenting to educators, I start with the teacher's experience first, because let's face it, you have to sign up for the program and you have to assign an article, an item. You have to give the students something in order to respond to that. But I'm actually going to start with the student experience first. That way it substantiates and helps you understand why there's merit for this program. When the child is utilizing this resource, in my opinion, Google Classroom is a great resource, a great platform in order to distribute that information to the students. So when the child goes to, or the student, I'm used to working in K-6, I often refer to students as children. I'm so sorry. Some of you are working with high schoolers and they're basically adults at this point. So I'll try to use the word student a little bit more during my presentation. When the student goes to Google Classroom and then enters your Google Classroom space, the assignment that you provided for them should be tucked in there waiting for them. The child simply clicks right there on that specific item. The child, student, learner, the student then authenticates with their Google account. There's a button that pops up. The student clicks right there to sign in with Google. And after signing in with Google, then this is what it looks like. And this is what it looks like on an iPad. So it is accessible on multiple resources. I would not say that it's good to ever use it on a cell phone, even if someone is capable of pulling it up on a cell phone, because that content is going to be way too small for the students to navigate. So I would say no to a cell phone, but on an iPad, it does work swimmingly. So this is what it looks like for the student. Along the bottom, you'll notice it kind of looks like a pin, if you will. I'll see if I can draw on the screen. Oh, that didn't work out very well. Let me try one more time. I'll activate my little pen tool over here. And then right along here, this is where the student understands that questions are going to pop up in the context of that video. So it's not just watch a video and then that's it. The educator, the teacher, has had an opportunity to strategically place questions in there to ensure that the student is understanding the content along the way. Because let's face it, if you just dropped a video into Google Classroom and then asked the students to watch it, two things. Number one, you have no idea who actually watched it. Number two, you have no idea how much of that content they actually understand. The beautiful thing about Ed Puzzle is not only are you delivering instruction, but you're also able to verify who actually watched it and who understands it. That's how Ed Puzzle revolutionizes the idea of video-rich independent learning. So each of those little pins along the bottom indicates when a question will appear. And then over here on the right-hand side, the learner recognizes again at each of those points that a question is going to appear at those specific junctures and the type of question that will appear. At the top of this second circle that I just made, it says open-ended. So an open-ended question appears at marker 10 minutes and 30 seconds, where the other items are multiple choice questions. At any point, if you have questions, you're more than welcome to indicate so in the chat space, and I can respond to those. So on this slide, I'm pretending that I'm a learner and I'm coming into this space. When I come into this space, if more than one teacher is utilizing this and I'm supposed to learn from multiple teachers, I would use this space over here to make sure that I'm heading over to the gallery or the list of classes. Over here on the left, I have an opportunity to see which specific class I'm going to. So students in junior high and high school, for some, depending on who their teacher is and what strategies that teacher is using in the classroom, some students may have 4 or 5 different teachers who are using Edpuzzle as a learning space. And so the student needs to navigate through those different courses in order to find the right content. So that's how the learner navigates through in order to make sure that they find exactly what they're looking for. In addition to this, students are able to locate the items that are due in the near future. So if something's coming up this week, 2 days, etc., the learner is able to indicate or locate that information in this specific area right here. In addition to that, upcoming events are located in this space down at the bottom. And then if there were 3 or 4 or 5 items, then they would be listed in that space. And adjacent to the due assignments, you'll notice how it says completed. I've clicked on that. There's an orange line underneath it indicating that I'm in this space. And for all of the assignments that have been graded by the teacher, the learner now has access to the grades for each of those assignments. So the student can then go back and determine how successful they were at completing those specific tasks. So this specific slide right here is a video that I'm not going to play right now, but this is a resource that I share with teachers. So the teachers can share this video with their students inside Google Classroom. Instead of spending 20 minutes inside your instructional space, which you have limited number of minutes, you need to be very resourceful with those minutes. You're more than welcome to simply share this teaching video out to your students in Google Classroom and say, if you've never used Google Classroom before, let me show you this video. Or you're more than welcome to play this video inside class, and then everyone's watching all at the same time, therefore nobody's confused. And this specific video is designed to teach the students how to use Google Classroom from their perspective. So I have that link, it's available inside the presentation. You're more than welcome to share that with your students. The next portion is very small. Creating an account is super easy. And then I'm going to navigate the teacher experience, which is the bulk of the slides for today's presentation. When you head to edpuzzle.com, like I didn't even put the web link in here, so sorry. If you do a Google search for Edpuzzle, it's usually the first one. It's sponsored. It's going to show up near the top. So edpuzzle.com. So when you head to Edpuzzle, over on the right-hand side, it's going to ask you if you would like to create an account or if you're signing in because you already have an account. And the onboarding process of becoming a brand new teacher in this space. And then Sherry did an excellent job of putting the link in there. So it's in the chat space. You're more than welcome to click on that as well. So when you head to Edpuzzle, my recommendation is to sign in with Google because you're connecting your students to Google Classroom. In my opinion, it's super important that you sign in with Google. That way Edpuzzle has already established that relationship with Google and those resources can interface well with one another. So after you've signed up, after you've logged in using Google, then on the left-hand side of the screen, you will see a plus symbol where next to where it says My Classes. And this is where you're going to sync one singular class or multiple classes into this Edpuzzle space, so that when you have completed the task of designing an assignment, you can easily share that assignment with Google Classroom through Edpuzzle. If I'm moving too quickly, if I'm sharing information too quickly, you're more than welcome to ask me to slow down. If I need to clarify, feel free to provide that information in the chat space. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going at the speed that I'm going. The process of syncing with Google Classroom requires you to click just a few things. So I'll walk through that process and provide clarity. Over on the right-hand side, where it says My Classes, so here we are in the teacher interface. It has similar characteristics to that student interface. When I'm up here inside My Classes, you'll notice how it says Content, it says Gradebook, and it says My Classes. So you have choices inside of that teacher dashboard space. In order to sync with Google Classroom, please make sure that you're inside of the My Classes area in order to locate the plus symbol that I'm talking about. Over on the left side over here, this is where that plus symbol actually exists. So then you're going to click on the plus symbol. You're letting Edpuzzle know that you want to sync those classes. Then you're going to have this entire box pop up. What you want to do is you want to connect with a learning management system. So Google Classroom is an LMS or a learning management system. So your choices up at the top, you're going to choose Connect LMS Class. After you've made that selection, you're then going to choose Google Classroom. It may have a couple pop-ups. Do you give us permission? Yes, that's fine. Allow, etc. And then after you have had an opportunity to click that Google Classroom button, you will find a list of Google Classrooms that you are the teacher of. And I don't know that any of these teachers wanted their names on display, so I whited those out for them. As an instructional technology coach, I have like 120 Google Classrooms, and so they all populate into this space. So item number 1, you're going to select that specific classroom. Ooh, I didn't mean to do that. You're going to select that specific classroom. So you'll notice how that little check mark exists in the box right there. And then there's a drop down menu right underneath that space. So I have my blue arrow that says grade pointing to where it says first grade. And then using that drop down menu, you would select the specific grade for the students that you are working with. After you've had a chance to put the check mark in the singular box or the multiple boxes, and then you have selected the grades appropriate for each of those spaces, then you would use the Import Classes button located over here. And now you've had a chance to sync Edpuzzle with Google Classroom so that they can interface with one another smoothly. I'm going to continue this teacher experience, and now I'm going to talk about curating or developing content. So these are the 5 key areas that I'm going to talk about in this next area of the presentation. I'll pause 15 seconds so you can read through that. All right, I'm going to head over to the next slide. So when I talked about the teacher dashboard earlier, I mentioned the characteristics that are located up on the top on the right, indicating where exactly you want to go. So we were previously inside My Classes. I've now bumped over to the content area. Inside the content area, there are several filtering strategies that allow you to find exactly what you're looking for. The first item that I'm highlighting over here on the left is the search box. I don't know about you, but I'm super happy whenever there's a search box. It saves me time. I'm able to locate things smoothly. In addition to this search box up on the top on the left, I'm going to highlight or point out key areas along the left-hand side indicating content right here. On each of these, I'm going to click on each one of these, and on the right-hand side, the view or the vantage point is going to change just a little bit. So usually under the category for home, it might be content that is trending across the platform. So 6,000 teachers are sharing content related to Martin Luther King. So that might be a trending piece, a trending item that's located in that area. Or if there's a natural disaster, then hurricanes or tornadoes or tsunamis might be something that's trending. So anything that's trending is going to show up in that home area. In addition to home, there's also curriculum. It's been broken down into 3 different categories. So you're more than welcome to search for content using those particular filtering strategies. In addition to curriculum, the school where you teach is also located on that left-hand side. And then in that process of signing up as a teacher, it probably asked you that question. So that's why Edpuzzle knows or recognizes that Copper Hills is one of my sites. You'll notice right here in the Copper Hills Elementary area that content related to my school is located on the screen here. So if any of my colleagues are teaching with content that I might find to be valuable, something related to character, something related to positivity, something related to digital citizenship, or content specific material, I can locate this in this space right here. In addition to that, you also have minutia. You're able to filter down even further in order to find content that's specific to what you would like to teach. If it's a subject area or a grade level, you can specify those search criteria, those specific items in this area to refine your search so that you find exactly what you're looking for. In addition to the school site area, you also have the area identified as my content. So in that space where you have made copies of other videos that you've located, or you have saved particular resources, you'll be able to find those in this area. Because if you're going to teach that lesson over and over again, or you have 3 periods of the same class, it is so nice to know that that content is going to be easy to find right there in that My Content area. You can locate it and then distribute it to period 2, period 3, period 6, etc. Now all of Tuesday's content is ready to go. So that particular area helps you find content that you have curated already. Below those specific areas, there are also popular channels. So if your colleagues are designing their own videos, fantastic, awesome, woohoo, good for them. However, there's so much content in here that's available from Edpuzzle, YouTube, Khan Academy, National Geographic, etc., that you're able to locate that content in this area as well. So if you know it's already on YouTube, you already know that it's on National Geographic, then you can quickly search for those resources in that area. And then again, that criteria over here that indicates what specific grade level or what specific subject area, those are also available right there, and you can find that content quickly. You have the ability to modify an existing video. So let's pretend that you find a video on YouTube that's 1 hour and 10 minutes long, and there's no way you want to distribute a video that's 1 hour and 10 minutes long to your students, but there is a 15-minute pocket inside of that video that you think is absolutely spectacular. You're more than welcome to trim down the left and the right side of the video in order to get down to that 15-minute pocket in order to share just a small section of that video with the students. Now, one thing I will mention, in my mind as a teacher, sometimes I think, oh, this is an easy assignment. It's only going to take the kids 25 minutes. Recognize that early on, if your students are very new to this learning experience, it's going to take them longer than you think the first couple of times. And they're also pausing to answer questions. So in your mind, if you think the whole thing is going to only take 25 minutes, pay attention to the fact that some of your learners are going to go back and rewatch sections of that video 2 or 3 times So my recommendation is to be very intuitive, evaluate, predict, think about that student experience. Sherry brings up a fantastic point inside the chat space, and later on in my presentation, I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to draw attention to the whitelisting process. And so, yes, not every video that's available out there on YouTube is instantly available to your students. So my recommendation is make sure the video content has been whitelisted by Sherry before you share this content out, because not all videos are accessible to students immediately. So if you have students who are protesting, oh, I tried to do that assignment last night and it didn't work, and your email's blowing up with students who are saying, it's not working, I can't get in, then the key problem that you might need to address is that video might not be available to students, and so it needs to be whitelisted. So I'll address that later in my presentation a little bit more. Thank you so much. When it comes to modifying an existing video, you can edit, copy, assign, share. You can trim, apply voiceover, make your own questions. These are the key ideas that I'm going to head to in the next 8 or so slides. So that last slide, I'm going to go over those slowly and carefully. Item number 1 is the idea of trim or cut. So I alluded to this just a minute ago. If you find a video that's an hour and 10 minutes long, you only want 15 minutes of it. One of the first things that you can do is you can just trim off the left or the right portion of that video. So make sure that cut has been illuminated, and then you're going to drag these markers in from the left or in from the right, and you will apply that specific cut to the video. You're obviously not damaging the original video that's on YouTube. You're just sharing with your students a portion of that original video. So you can trim or cut video as you see fit. The next item is the idea of voiceover. Based on the permissions that the author has established in YouTube, voiceover will not work on every video. But let's pretend that you've found this fantastic science video on YouTube, and this individual is modeling some really great scientific idea, and things are blowing up, there's lots of smoke, and there's no way you're going to do that in your own kitchen or in your backyard. You're not going to buy those supplies, but you are thankful. You're thankful that this friend has done those things in their backyard or in their kitchen or in their garage or whatever. But you don't necessarily feel like the words that are on top of that specific video are helpful. They don't guide the students as well as you would like to. And so you really wish you could monologue over that video. The answer is yes. You can monologue over that video so that your own words appear over that video, and your students have access to exactly the content that you want, because it's got the vocabulary for chapter 6 and it's got content ideas for chapter 6, and you really want to prepare them for the chapter 6 test. You can use that voiceover strategy in order to provide students exactly what you want. So enough about voiceover, moving on to the next item. This next one, I'm going to spend a significant amount of time on, so that way you clearly understand this process. As the educator, you want to make sure that the students understand the content that you're providing to them. So therefore, like, let's pretend it's a regular lecture. In a regular lecture, you're going to pause for clarity and understanding periodically throughout that lecture, aren't you? This is that very same thing. We're looking at the video as a lecture, and we want to pause for clarity and understanding. And so these targeted questions that you place at specific junctures provide you an opportunity to make sure that the students understand the content that's being provided to them. So here's an example. I find this video on YouTube about Lexington and Concord. Let me back up and try that sentence all over again. I found this video on Edpuzzle that another teacher already did, and it's ready to go, and all the questions are in there, and I don't have to come up with my own questions. So much like the student interface, you still see those bubbles along the bottom letting you know exactly when those questions appear. Much like the student interface on the right-hand side, you know exactly what types of questions are going to appear at each of those spaces. So we want to modify this. Maybe there are too many questions, or you want to infuse 2 extra questions. You want to make some changes. So your first step is that you're going to copy this. So this other teacher did a great job. It's fantastic, but you want your own copy, a copy that you can modify. So go ahead and click copy. After you click copy, you now have the ability to make adjustments. If you want to reword the question, if you want to make the answer choices a little bit more complicated, you can go in and wave your magic wand and do whatever you want in this space. You have answer choice strategies. You can either employ the multiple choice question option. You can utilize an open-ended question, or you can just stick a note card in there like, hey, this idea is going to be on Friday's test. You might want to pay attention to this. So you're in charge of the number of questions and the complexity of those questions. When you do that, it's going to look like this. So right now we're working with a multiple choice question. There are 3 specific boxes that appear right at the beginning. So in this region right here, the very first one is where you're going to type the question. The 2 boxes down below are where you're going to type the answer choices. Another thing that I want to draw your attention to is that you're in charge of marking the 1 answer that is correct or the 2 answers that are correct. And you're in charge of marking the answer options that are incorrect. Because if Edpuzzle is going to do all the grading for you, you need to let Edpuzzle know the correct answer, and you need to let Edpuzzle know which answers are incorrect. And those symbols are located right here. So you're either going to do the green check mark because it's the correct answer, or you're going to mark the red X's because those specific answers are incorrect. On this specific page, I'm just letting you know that true false was not a previous option, but as long as you choose multiple choice and you only have 2 answer options, you're more than welcome to use true false as an option if you would like to. I'm drawing your attention to the item on the left where it says add another answer choice. Strategically, Edpuzzle's only going to populate with 2 answer options automatically, but you're more than welcome to come in and click that plus button so that you can you can employ more than just those 2, and you can have 3 or 4 answer choices if you want to. Once you've had a chance to review your work, go ahead and click the save button, and that question is finished, and you can move on to the next question. This specific slide is showing you what the open-ended question looks like. In an open-ended question, the students might respond with 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 12, 13 sentences. It's up to you and the rigor you have established for that specific question. It can be a personal experience where they're connecting to the video in some way. It can be a summary of everything that's happened so far. It can be a complex question of any kind. I will let you know for an open-ended question that Edpuzzle is not capable of determining whether or not those answers are correct for the students or not. So you would need to go in and grade each of those responses individually. Once you've had a chance to review all of the questions that you have edited or you have put in all by yourself, you're going to use the finish button on the top right to indicate that your work there is finished. Now, after doing all of that work, maybe you would like to share your hard work with somebody else, or maybe you found one, you didn't do any work to it, it's fantastic just the way that it is, and you want to share it with a colleague. Over in this space, when you click on the assignment, when you click like you're going to officially assign it to the students, even though you may not be assigning it to the students, this is where you find a public link so that you can email the link to a colleague. In my opinion, it's not very intuitive. It wasn't very easy for me to locate this. I had to look on the little help page, the support page, in order to figure this out. So click on the assignment, click like you're going to assign it, even though you're not going to assign it. And that's where you find the public link space so that you can share it with a colleague. What does it look like to actually take this assignment and then share it in Google Classroom? So we're pretending that we've curated the content, we've made a copy of something, We've gone in and made all of the adjustments that we need to make. Now we're ready to share it with the students. So let me walk you through the process of officially assigning something. Once you have selected that content, or you've made all the additions and then you choose to assign from that space, your next step is to go down to the bottom where these options will appear. And these options just appeared because I have a check mark that appears right here. So a little check mark appeared inside of the corner indicating that I would like to work with this one. The options down at the bottom have just appeared. You'll see that there's multiple options to choose from. Right now, I'm specifically assigning it to my students. So I'm going to choose the assign button. After I choose the assign button, I now need to figure out what class I want to distribute this to. If you have multiple classes, you would obviously cull through those to find the specific group of students that you want to give this to. You are going to check the little box next to the name of that class. After you've checked the little box next to the name of that class, over on the right-hand side, there are two rectangles right here. The top one indicates the start date. It says it on the screen. The one on the bottom indicates the due date. So nothing beyond that date at that time, the students will not be able to work on this assignment. So evaluate that start date, evaluate that due date, and then move down the screen just a pinch. You have 3 different buttons that you're looking at in this area. If you toggle the button into the on position for prevent skipping, you are saying that the students cannot skip portions of the video. They can't skip section A, B, C, D, etc. They can't just bypass that content and then ignore that question. You are forcing them to watch every single portion, every minute of that entire video. So if that's important to you, please make sure that you toggle that button on. Immediately underneath prevent skipping, we have turn on CC, which would be closed captioning. If you have students with I recommend this for your ELs, for your students who are learning English as a second language. It's helpful for that audio content to be supported with the actual language on the screen. So it's completely up to you if you feel like that's a helpful resource or not. And then on the bottom, the next button, I think I have a whole slide for it right here. You would toggle on or off if you want to post this to Google Classroom, and then Edpuzzle is just going to instantly send it off to Google Classroom for you. If it belongs in a category or a topic, you can always drag it into a specific category or topic if you need to. That way it doesn't just populate all the way at the top. If you need it to get tucked into something, then you're more than welcome to drag that in after the fact. Once you have made all of those choices, all of those selections, then you come over to the assign button to officially assign that to your students. So let's pretend you curated that content, you gave it to your students, you gave them an acceptable window to complete that task. Now you are evaluating that content and you want to give students feedback, you want to grade all of that work. I mentioned it already that the multiple choice bits are auto graded. Teacher feedback is an option beyond just providing a grade, and then exporting grades is another option in this space as well. We're going to head all the way over to My Classes using the teacher dashboard. Once we have chosen My Grade Book is actually another option as well. Even though I'm pointing at My Classes, Grade Book is another option. When you head over to My Classes, you are going to choose the specific class on the left-hand side of the screen, just in case you have more than one. The assignment that you already distributed to the students is going to be located in the middle. You may have 3 different sections. So if you don't find exactly what you're looking for, you may need to click onto one of those adjacent areas to find exactly what you're looking for. Once you have clicked on a specific assignment, then you will notice the metadata down here. For child privacy, I don't have student names on the left-hand side. Normally, it would have all of the names of the students populated in that region, but because this is available to lots of people, I had to scrub that data. The green arrow is pointing to the area that shows the teacher how much of the content each child watched. So if someone only watched 10% of the content, that's going to appear in this area. You can determine who watched all of it and who watched some of it. I have now scooted all the way over to the right of this same screen. And when you click the More button, the dots, you have the ability to reset someone's progress if needed. If you feel like, I'm not sure if they really did that, or maybe they did a poor job on it and they would like to do the task over again, you're not required to share the assignment to the entire class all over again. If only 2 students need to redo the assignment, you can just reset progress for the 1 or 2 students who needed help on that assignment. They need to go back and do it again. So that is an option for you. When it comes time to providing responses to the students because they're finished, is the student progress in real time? Good question. I believe it is. I'm trying to reflect back on the last time I had access to student data because I don't have students rostered under me in the role that I'm in. I believe that it's fairly efficient. So if you have an AM or a PM cohort and you want to see whether or not the AM students are actually on task and doing this, it may refresh every 45 seconds or so. I don't know the frequency with which it refreshes on the teacher dashboard, but it is. Yes, I have someone who already responded. Yes, I believe it is too, followed by it is. So yes, the answer to that question would be yes. So go ahead and click on the blue button right here in order to respond to those student questions. And this is what it looks like. You can simply, with the wave of your magic wand, click mark correct for all ungraded responses. Now, the way that I do things, I would probably go through and scan the ones that needed some expert attention. And then I would go in and specifically provide feedback to those students. And then I would use this mark ungraded as correct as the final step, not as the first step. Other people might do it the other way around, mark everything as correct, and then fine tune as you see fit, whatever works for you. You can choose the X indicating that it's incorrect. You can choose the check mark indicating that it's completely correct, or you can choose the minus symbol in order to provide feedback in that specific region, indicating the number of points that the child should receive for any specific question. And then you also have access to the comment space. So if you would like to provide direct and specific feedback to any given child or student or learner, then you can. If the student isn't responding in complete sentences, and that's critical and important and needs to happen, you can provide that feedback. Or you can provide slightly general feedback, like this answer does not clearly explain all components of the question. Please be careful next time. Whatever feedback you choose to use, you have the ability to go in there and then provide that feedback. The nice thing about this page is that the original question is available up at the top so that you don't have to scoot all over the place trying to figure out what that original question is. You have access to that information in order to accurately respond to those student responses. I already provided the comment feedback. I said that a second ago. And then here's that magic wand button where it can go in on those open response questions so that you can provide the feedback that's needed for all of the students. This is kind of what that metadata looks like a little bit when you want to evaluate how the students have responded to specific questions. You can see what their instant grade is, how much of the video was watched, how many correct or incorrect responses there are, and you can also see their learning strategies. So if any one student went in and watched a portion of the video more than once, that feedback is available to you so you can see what strategies they're using in order to engage with the content. And when the students are watching the content and they need to rewatch a section of the video, this particular slide is not very effective for me to explain what I'm talking about, but If a child comes to a specific question and they want to rewatch, the video will actually just scoot back to the beginning of that one section. It's not going to catapult them all the way back to the beginning of the video. It just gives them an opportunity to rewatch that specific section of the video to gain insight on that specific question. Over here, if you want to post the grades to Google Classroom, you can export those grades to Google Classroom. And then if you don't already have access to the strategies for downloading answer grades from Google Classroom so that they can be imported into Q, then your instructional technology coach can get you the information to do that. So it can go directly into Q from there. Here's one completely, totally optional resource, but for anyone who thinks that they would like to use this, you can. If you've ever been to the Chrome web store, there are these super cool resources called extensions. And inside the Chrome web store, when you're looking for extensions, I do have the link. So if you have access to that shortened URL to go to the slide presentation, it's available there. And you can install the Chrome extension for YouTube on your computer. What does that mean, Melissa? I don't understand. What this means is this little button where the blue arrow is pointing will show up below every YouTube video that you watch. So if you're scooting through YouTube trying to locate a video on intermolecular hydrogen bonding or how to conjugate irregular AR verbs or whatever your content is that you're looking for, if you have an aha moment and you've located a video that you absolutely like, you can click this button from YouTube because you installed the extension, and then you can go straight to editing that video inside Edpuzzle. It'll catapult you over to Edpuzzle, and then you can start making those adjustments. In my opinion, it's a pretty decent time saver if you want to save time. So Sherry did a fantastic job of mentioning the idea of whitelisting. In order to make sure that students have access to that content, you need to make sure that you head over to the Curriculum Instruction and Accountability website, the online learning resources. And then from there, you're going to head to the Technology tab. In that drop-down menu, you're going to choose YouTube. After you choose YouTube, there are two resources on this page that I specifically want to draw your attention to. On the right-hand side, it shows you content that's already been whitelisted. So you don't have to send Sherry a request and say, hey, can you post that? Can you whitelist this video? It's so fantastic. If it's already on the list, it's already whitelisted and you're good to go. If it's not whitelisted and it's not available to the students yet, over on the left-hand side, where it says submit YouTube videos for whitelisting, you are going to click over there. I usually use the little gray box right here in order for it to launch in an adjacent tab. I like it when it's larger. And then Sherry has some fantastic questions for you right here. You're just going to pay careful attention to each of those questions, drop that web link in there, drop the name of the video in there, and then try to give her 2 to 3 days advance notice if you can. That would be helpful. Sometimes she's away at a conference or doing a training or facilitating other things, and she can't stop what she's doing to respond to that email. And so if you can kind of plan ahead, that would be a blessing to her. So let me tackle some troubleshooting questions that you might encounter. I'm obviously not going to answer every question that you have in this training. So when you're inside Edpuzzle, over on the right-hand side, you can click on the question mark. And when you click on the question mark, there's a drop-down menu, and you can either go directly to the Help Center, or you can click on any one of these specific questions. And then Edpuzzle does a fantastic job of answering those questions in their Help Center.